Welcome to part 2 of the Granny Square Cocoon Cardigan tutorial series. I'd like to give a special thanks to spoonandhooks.com for the inspiration and the core pattern for this project. The pattern link is listed below in the description. In part 1, we did a giant granny square as the main body of our cardigan. I hope it didn't take you too long on those last few rounds. Once you get the hang of the granny square pattern, it's pretty quick and easy. So in part 2, we will be finishing up our square and seaming and doing the cuffs and the collar. We left off just doing the pattern repeats of the 3DC chain 1 3DC for the sides, and then 3DC chain 2 3DC for each of the corners. So our final round for the square is to do a single crochet around to make a binding or a base for the seaming and for the sleeves. So let's go ahead and do that. To get started, we had just finished doing our last row of our granny square pattern, and I joined the round, and we're going to start with a chain 1. Then we're going to turn our giant big guy here. Chain 1, and so we will be doing 1 single crochet in every DC and every chain 1 space for each of the sides to start. So since we're right here on a chain 1 space, we're going to do a single crochet in that space. So 1 single crochet. So now we have 3 double crochets right here. So we're going to single crochet. 1, 2, 3. Then another chain 1 space. 1, 2, 3. Now it can be kind of weird. The end of your double crochet is going to be right next to here, so just kind of keep an eye out. Make sure you're not skipping. You can easily miss that sometimes. So now we're going to single crochet in the chain 1 space, and then single crochet in each DC, just like that. Chain 1 space, 3 double crochet right there, and single crochet, chain 1 space, single crochet in each DC. So yeah, it's pretty simple. And what this is going to do is this is going to just give us a really nice even base to attach everything together. It's really important that we have that so that when it comes to the seaming, everything will line up and it will just be very neat and nice. So I'm just going to continue around my side until I get to the corner. All right, so I'm just about to my corner. So I'm going to do these last few single crochets. So now here we are. We just did the 3 double crochets of our corner. Now we're at the chain 2 space. So we're going to do 4 single crochets in the chain 2 space. This helps us get a nice sized corner. This helps just to round that out and give us a nice point, like you can see right there. Give us a nice point. So then we're going to do the 3 double crochets. Now, just make sure that you are finding this one. Don't do it back into the hole. Just make sure you find this double crochet. The easiest way is to look for the post and find your stitch. So 1, 2, 3. And then the chain 1 space gets 1, and you just keep working around. So just keep going, do this single crochet all the way around. See how we have this really nice edge. That's going to help us out so much when we go to do our seaming. So keep going, and I will catch you back when we're ready to do our seams. All right, I'm just about at the end of my round doing my single crochets. So I've got 2 more DCs right here. So this is my last little cluster, and I've got 2 more, and this last one can be kind of hard to see. So there's one. So here's our chain, here's our first single crochet. We want to go right in there for a final. And then we're going to slip stitch into the top of this last single crochet. Come on, you little bugger. There we go. So we're going to slip stitch into the top. So next, we are going to take our yarn. You want to leave about a 6-inch tail or so that we can weave it in. And we're going to cut our yarn. And how I usually finish it is I just kind of pull it through like a knot, and I'll just leave it like a knot to finish it. So that is the final part of our single crochet. So now to seam. We're going to take our square and we're going to fold this guy in half, as you can see. It's quite large, so. And when you fold it in half, you want to make sure that your corners are all lined up, and you want to make sure that each of your little clusters and your chains match up. So there's that matches up. And we're going to go all the way down. So I'm going to make sure that we're all lined up here, just like that. So just kind of keep an eye out where you're going. Lining up every single cluster as you go all the way to the end here. There you go. And yes, you quite possibly will have a little cluster here that's folded in half. That's fine. So now that we are all nice and aligned for our corner, we need to measure 7 inches from the fold. So from this fold side. Woo, quickie. So we're going to measure 7 inches. About right there. Now if you want, you can take a little stitch marker and kind of mark where you're at. I'm right on a little chain 1 space, so on a little, yeah, right here, which is nice. So yeah. So 7 inches, this little area is going to judge how large your armholes are going to be. So this is going to be a total of 14 inches since it's folded in half. So if you want your armholes to be bigger or smaller, you just need to adjust. So if you wanted them bigger, you could go to maybe 8 inches. If you wanted them smaller, go down. Just you know you. So just go for it. I'm just going to do the 7 inches. So there we go. All lined up 7 inches. So the way we're going to bind is we're going to actually single crochet our binding together. Now, right side, wrong side, it doesn't really matter since we turned our work, which was a nice benefit of turning our work at the beginning. Since we did the chain 3 turn, it's pretty much the same on either side. I mean, you can pick which side you want, and once you know, always want your right sides facing before you seam. So, we're just gonna go with this. Now, we need to reattach our yarn. Here we go. There we go. Okay, we need to reattach our yarn. And the way that I like to do it, I just kind of do a slip stitch. I want to make sure you do leave a tail. I kind of do a slip stitch. And I know I'm going to make people cringe because I just did that, but I feel better when I have this knot to start. You don't have to do it like that. All right, so I am going to chain 1 just to make this a little easier. So, actually I turned that down too. So now we are going to, keeping everything lined up like we did, and you are welcome to pin this if that makes things easier. We are going to single crochet in both loops to seam, just like that. See, we're getting this nice seam right here. So make sure that you are grabbing both loops as you go and that you are staying lined up. So if I'm grabbing the chain one single crochet in this side, I need to make sure I'm grabbing it in the opposite side. Just like that. Now if you do prefer to just mattress stitch your seam together, that's fine. I don't have a preference, honestly. I think both are fine. But for the sake of the pattern, we are going to do the single crochet. So yep, we're just going to keep working. Always check that you are lined up. That's the biggest thing. You do not want a crooked seam here. And you don't want one side to be longer than the other. It should be symmetrical. Here we go. Alright, just going between our two sides and joining them together. So you're just going to keep going all the way to the end here. Just like this. So you're going to continue all the way until you get to this, the first chain two section. So right in here. Just keep going till you line up, and you can get through to the first two single crochets right here. So there's the 4 total in the corner, just do 1, 2, and end right there. All right, so we have our first side all nice and seamed up right here. And that's what it's going to look like. And when you flip it over, you can see we've got this kind of like little panel right here. All right, so now we are going to go ahead and do the second side, and it's the same exact thing. We are going to fold our square in half and then line up our edges as best as we can. So yes, on the other side, you just finish, cut your yarn, leaving a 6-inch tail, and then, yeah. That's it. And then we work on the other side, and we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to line up all of our little clusters just like so. We're going to take our measuring tape, and we are going to measure 7 inches from the fold. So it's going to be this space again. Just double check. Yeah, we're going to do it right. I'm going to start right in this chain one space again, which matches up to what we did before. So I'm going to attach my yarn like I did, making seasoned crocheters cringe because I did a knot. It's okay if you don't like doing knots, or if you do, it doesn't matter. All right, so we're going to, I'm actually going to chain one and turn this side. Whew. And second verse, same as the first. Just start lining up your crochets, taking extra care to make sure everything matches. So yep, just do the same thing, continue down your second side, seaming it together, and then once we're finished, we're going to go and we're going to start working on our modified sleeves and collar. All right, now that we've finished up our side seams, it's time to move on to our sleeve cuff. So to give you an idea of what we're going to be doing, I already finished the first one. So this is a single crochet in the back loop only ribbed cuff. The benefit of this is that as we work our cuff, we will be attaching it to our cardigan. It lays nice and flat and it has a really pretty knit look. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is we're going to need to attach our yarn. Now, where we want to attach that is into our first kind of solid single crochet of the last round we did. So you're going to have these two kind of stitch looking things right here in the middle where we stitched. Just kind of ignore those. We'll get those at the end. We're going to start right here. So let's attach our yarn. I'm going to do my little tie on to attach. All right, so we're going to chain. We're going to get started. So the number of chains that you do will depend on how big you want your cuff. So this cuff right here is about 3 inches. So in order to get that 3 inches, I chained 11. Now whatever chain you do, you need to make sure you do the length of your cuff and then add 1 chain, because that's going to be our turning chain. So for me, I'm going to do 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Make sure your chains are nice and loose because we're basically starting a new project right here. So after you get your chains, you're going to single crochet in the second chain from our hook. So not this one, but the second one. And we're going to be working in the back bumps as we go down because we want to leave these nice stitches for when we're joining our cuff. So the second stitch from the hook, or chain from the hook. So single crochet all the way down. I apologize for the light changing. It's very cloudy today. All right. All the way down we go. Working in that back loop to give us a nice edge. And our last one kind of likes to hide. There it is. All right. So your total number of stitches on your rib or on your cuff should be 1 less than what you chained. So I have 10 right here. All right. The next step is where it gets pretty fun. We're going to slip stitch in the next 2 single crochets. So not the one right below, but the next 2. We're going to do slip stitch and make sure you go under both loops for this. So 1, 2. Now we turn, turning our sleeve. So this is where we're going to start working in the back loop only. We're going to start our round by not chaining. When we're attaching to the cardigan, we are not chaining. We're doing those 2 slip stitches and then we're going to just start working into our ribbing cuff. Now make sure when you start that you're ignoring these 2 slip stitches. We don't want to work into those. We want to start at, for me, my 10 stitches. That's where I'm going to start. If you're in doubt, just remember that number of how long your cuff was and count backwards, and that'll help you find where you need to start. So skipping the 2 slip stitches, work in the back loop only. So the back loop, you can see, here's our front. When you see our little V on top, this is our front, this is our back. We want to work in the back only and go all the way down, working in the back loop of your single crochets, all the way down. Now another note on your cuff, if you want your cuff to be nice and snug, you can go down a hook size and that's just fine. I wanted mine to be a little loose, so I'm just sticking with my J-hook. All right, so now that we're done, we're going to chain 1. So you will be doing a turning chain when you get to the end here. So chain 1 and turn. And now we're going to be working back down our cuff. So ignoring the first chain, work those 10 stitches again. in the back loop only. That's what develops the cuff and the ribbing, is the back loop. And those last couple can be a little finicky. Just make sure that you're kind of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you already have 10. Yep. So now we're going to do our attaching part, where we will be attaching to our cuff. So a good way to try to figure out where your next 2 slip stitches will be. It's easy to try to slip stitch into this hole right here, but if you turn your work and you pull your cuff up, you can see where it's tugging on that stitch. You can see that we've already worked into this hole right there. So we don't want to work into it again. So we're going to ignore that. That's already been worked, so that's done. So we're going to slip stitch into the next 2 single crochets. Here we go. And then we're going to turn. And now, just like before, we're going to skip those slip stitches and work in the back loop of our ribbing stitches. And you just keep going in the same way all the way around your cuff. So back loop of these 10 stitches. Then once we get to the end, we chain 1 and we turn. Skipping that first chain, working into our first single crochet, we're going to go into the back loop only. And just keep going all the way around. All right, so we're starting to head back. I've gone all the way around, and we're starting to get back to our seam right in here. Now, whenever I said kind of don't worry about those 2 little loops right in here where we did our stitching, we're basically going to treat those holes like stitches. So I'm headed back down my cuff here, and I will show you what I mean, and then I'll show you how to attach it together. We'll just work in the back loop all the way down the 10 stitches. All right, so again, kind of keeping an eye out that this has already been worked. We're going to slip stitch and slip stitch. This is why I wanted to not start right in the corner, because these slip stitches are going to hold these a lot more snugly together than if we were to attach our yarn right there, because we want that to be nice and snug. So I'm going to turn, and I'm going to keep going. Back up the cuff, back loop. Sorry. Here we go. Chain 1 and turn, and then back loop down the cuff. There we go. Now on focus. All right, back, down, cuff. Just checking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10. It's always good to double check that you have the right number of stitches as you go. All right. So if you have an odd number, right, and you need to do the slip stitching, just do the 1. It's all good. All right. So from here, we're kind of back at our beginning. The way we are going to attach these is going to be a little different. Ooh, get out of there, you little booger. All right. So I just did that slip stitch, and oh, there's my son. I just did that slip stitch. So now you want to hold your sides together. Try to get your stitches lined up, all 10 of them lined up together. And we're going to slip stitch one in the back. So one of our stitches is going to be in the back loop only. And then the next one's going to be in the front loop. It's technically the back. It just depends on how you look at it. In the front loop. So the one that's right next to your hook. You're not going to reach around, but you're going to go right in there. And I'll show you why we're doing it that way. So instead of going under both, we're going to go in the back loop of the first side and then the front loop of the next. So when I say front loop, I mean the loop that's closest to your hook right there. So we're going to slip stitch. So back loop of the first, front, or the loop closest to your hook on the next, and slip stitch. Back, front, slip, back, front, slip, back, front, slip, back, and front, slip, back, front, back, front, and just go all the way down to the end, making sure that you are all lined up. If you're not lined up, take it out and try again. You need to make sure this is nice and aligned. Way to the end there. Now, let me show you. See how that blends? It just kind of lays. By doing it that way, it lays nice and flat. Now, if you did, it doesn't matter if you happen to do it right side or wrong side. Really, it's either side. It looks pretty good, if you can see. It's pretty blended in, and it's going to be under your arm, so that's why we did the back and then the front and slip stitch, because it blends right in with your cuff and you can't hardly tell that it's there. All right, so all you got to do is cut your yarn, tie it off, and then do your other sleeve, and then I'll see you at the collar. All right, so now we're moving on to our collar. The best way to start, I think, is pick which side's it's pretty much the same either side, but you're going to kind of pick which side's going to be your bottom, and you're going to start there. And what we're going to be doing is exactly what we did on the sleeves. We're going to go all the way around this collar. So it's going to be a bit. So yeah, just make sure it's facing the right way. There we go. So I'm going to find roughly the center back of my shawl. It doesn't have to be exact. You just kind of want your ending seam to be in a non-prominent area. So we're just going to start right here. So find your stitch, and we're going to attach our yarn just like we did before on our sleeves. I'm going to attach it, and whenever you're doing your chains for this, I wouldn't go any bigger than 3 inches, even if your cuff's a little longer. Just because you're going to have all of that bulk around your neck, and you probably don't want that unless you want like a shawl collar where it folds down. So I'm going to do exactly what I did for my sleeve. I'm going to chain my 11. 1, 2, 3, loosely. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm going to single crochet in the second chain from the hook in the back bumps all the way down. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, All right, so now we're ready to reattach. We're going to slip stitch in the next two. It's exactly like our cuff. Just think of this, think of the collar as just one really big cuff. So we're going to turn our cardigan, and then skipping those two slip stitches, we're going to work in the back loop only of our ribbing. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Then we will chain 1 and turn, working in the back loops only. We're going to go back down our ribbing. This is such a great technique to know, especially if you plan to do lots of hats for Christmas. This makes this so much easier. There we go. All the way down. Now we're going to attach. Now remember, keeping in mind, do not work in the stitch that's already been worked. It looks very deceiving. It's super deceiving. Stinker. But we're going to not bother with that, and we're going to do the next two stitches. We're going to slip stitch. All right, so skipping the slip stitches, working in the back loops, and we keep going. So you're going to do this all the way around your cardigan. And I chuckle because it does take a little bit of time. It's a very soothing, I think that this is a very soothing way to do it. I would much rather do this than do a long strip and then have to sew that on. All right, so we chained 1 and I turned and I'm going back down. All right, skipping that deceitful stitch. It's not actually a stitch. Well, it is. We're going to slip stitch in the next two. Okay, so yeah, just keep going. Get all the way around to make the collar of your cardigan. If you find that, yeah, you get bored, just put it down. It's okay. All right, so I'm going to keep going all the way around and get it finished, and then I'll show you one more time how I joined the sides. All right, so here we are at the end of our collar. I went ahead and I slip stitched into the first stitch of this 10 row of 10 right here to get started. So now I'm going to close this up just like we did the sleeve, and we're going to do that by working in this front piece. We're going to work in the back loop of stitch number 10 of this front piece, and then we're going to work in the front loop of stitch number 10 on the back piece, and then we're going to slip stitch together. Now you always want to make sure that you are keeping count of where you are so that all of the stitches line up. So let's do that again. The back loop of this front and the front loop of the back, and slip stitch. Back loop, front loop. And pause to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, we're all lined up. Let's keep going. Back loop, front loop. Back loop and the front loop. All the way down, making sure we're nice and lined up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. Back loop, front loop, slip stitch. Back loop, front loop, slip stitch. Last two. Back loop, slip stitch. And there we go. All that's left to do is cut your yarn, and then we'll weave in our ends. All right, so here we are on the home run stretch. We're so close, guys. All that's left is to weave in our ends. And if you already know how to weave in ends, great. Just go ahead and do that and you're finished. But if you have issues with weaving in your ends and they always seem to slide out, let me walk you through how I do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is you don't want to try to deal with a floofy end like this, so just kind of cut that off. So that's easier to thread your needle. Just kind of push that through. Okay. There we go. All right, so my rule of thumb when I'm weaving in my ends is up, down, all around. That's the way you want to thread you get your needle through and work it around inside your stitches, is you want to go up, down, all around. When you do that, it's less likely that it's going to slip out. So I'm here at my side seam right here with this loose thread, and I'm going to kind of tuck it under, and I'm just going to kind of wiggle it around and through all the way down. Now, I'm actually going to go down now, different direction. Down through this. Now make sure you're not pulling these too tight because you do want to leave room for it to stretch. So if you want to just kind of pull it so that you're not yanking and getting tight. So now we're going to work back up like that. Making sure that we're not keeping it tight, and then down again. And that's it. Just make sure you're going in different directions. If you really, really feel nervous about it, you can cut here, but some people will, and I will do it sometimes, depending on if my yarn is slippy, I might actually work back through, like I just came down, I'll actually work back through that same section, kind of going in the yarn I just did, almost kind of like a Russian join, but hidden in there. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna clip that. All right, I'll show you a section that's on the actual ribbing. So here's this end. I'm gonna thread it on my needle, and we're gonna go up, down, all around. So I'm gonna go down, and hiding it in there. I'm going to go up, kind of diagonally up a little bit, like that. Remember, kind of pull in to make sure we're not leaving this too tight. And we're going to go back up. The point of it is just to remember that you want to make sure you're going in different directions. If you just keep going straight, it's going to be easier for your yarn to slide out. And yes, it's always good to kind of go back, like I said, if you have slippy yarn especially, to kind of go back where you just came, and that kind of locks it. I have yet to have any yarn popping out doing this way. Here's just one more. Also, if you ever end up with like gaps, kind of like this is a little bit of a big gap, you can use your yarn for weaving in as a great way to kind of shrink that down. See, we're going to pull it. See, that's a little better. And we're weaving in. We'll go back down. Go through here. Yeah. Down. Make sure we pull again. We'll kind of go up, back, all around. Yep, just up, down, all around. It's usually a good rule of thumb. And you're going to be well on your way to making sure these do not come out. There we go. That's in there. And just keep going. Now, one last thing with the ends. If you go to your center of your cardigan here, and you started with the magic loop, and you're noticing that your loop is starting to loosen. This is before you've woven in this end. A good way to weave in an end off of a magic loop is to actually take, get my hand under here, there we go, is to take your yarn and go around inside your loop, going under all of these stitches like this with your needle, because then you can pull it. Did you see that? You can get that pulled tighter to really help lock it in. And that will also help your magic loop from coming undone, because I've known people where that's happened. So just, you can go around a couple times, go up, kind of cut back down, go back the other way. There we go. So just finish weaving in your ends, and you're done. Congratulations, everybody. We finished our cardigan. I hope you enjoyed this project just as much as I did. I found that it worked up pretty quick for such a big, nice, cozy cardigan. I love how the collar came out with this beautiful ribbing on the sleeves and everything. If you have pictures of your finished work, I would love to see it. So feel free to find me on Facebook and on Instagram, #DoodleandString, all one word, and I would love to see it. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you for our next project together.